Hola, hola, and welcome to the podcast. I am Steph Wharton. I am a speaker, coach, and founder of the Speaker Movement, which is all about empowering underrepresented folks to take up space, embrace their thought leadership and their public speaking era in order to amplify their impact. Now, as part of that movement, I want to support as many of you as possible when it comes to booking more public speaking engagements. So for today's let's say episode, lesson, even masterclass, if you will, we're going to be exploring all the different ways that you get to book public speaking engagements. And we're going to go through 5 different categories that I love to prioritize myself as a public speaker and that I support a lot of my clients, whether it's inside of Visibility Tour, the challenge, inside of the Speaker Movement Directory, or inside of the Speaker Experience Mastermind. Really depends on what kind of support you're looking for. So, booking public speaking engagements. It'd be really freaking awesome if you reach, let's say, a stage in your public speaking journey and career where folks know who you are, what you're all about, and what you bring to events and to public speaking engagements, that they're at your door, they're in your email inbox, in your DMs, inviting you to speak at their events and on their platforms. However, as much as that could happen right from the get-go, it does take a lot of time to build your brand and your authority and leadership as a public speaker in order to switch the dynamics so that folks are coming to you seemingly out of the blue. What you get to do though first is build up that brand and start to intentionally take action as a public speaker in order to book and land a lot of yeses as a keynote, as a panelist, as somebody who's getting interviewed on a podcast. The different ways that you get to public speak and to share your voice and your mission are endless. And it's just about finding something that feels really aligned and getting creative with how you put yourself out there in order to get all of those yeses. So the first way that you can book public speaking engagements, it's probably one of the first ones that would come to mind, honestly, which is to pitch yourself. And I know it can feel a little bit daunting, which is why I like to break it up and make it as simple as possible so that you can get out of your own way and start sending those emails, start pitching yourself and putting yourself out there. Now, the first thing to consider is that whoever you're pitching to, whether it's an event organizer, a community host, it could be a podcast host, they may already have a process in place. So if that is the case, I would encourage you to follow that process to increase the chances of getting that yes from the event host. Now, this can look like different things. Perhaps their process includes an intake form. You can check out their website, their social media links. They're going to have that accessible for you to essentially apply through a form. And they're going to ask you all the questions that are important and that are going to help them vet whether you are the perfect person for that event or that platform. So they're making it really easy for you, and you now get to follow that process. Now, perhaps they don't have that, right? There's no intake form, but they still have a, let's say on their website, they might have a contact form or they have guidelines. So I would encourage you to do that. Perhaps the guideline is to send them an email, to reach out on Instagram, whatever that might be. Now, if there is no set process in place, that's okay. You now get to pick whatever way to pitch that feels good to you. The most common options would be to either send an email or reach out privately through, let's say, the DMs on Instagram. Now, this could be a personal preference. I love a DM, a voice note even. It could be text, it could be voice note, doesn't really matter. Again, your personal preference. But in the receiving end, even as somebody who doesn't take guests on my podcast, when I receive a voice note for whatever it is, whether they want to be on my platform or they want to invite me to speak at their event, it just feels so personal and so intentional that they're reaching out specifically to me, that they're taking the time out of their day to personalize their invitation or their pitch to me as the event organizer or the host. So for me as the receiving end, and I know this happens a lot for other folks, I've sent DM voice notes where they were so well received. It was folks who, yes, I had built a little bit of a relationship before, but we had never collaborated before ever. And we were in very different stages of our businesses. But this person went out of their way after I sent my pitch over to say, this honestly is one of the best pitches I've received. I love how personal and intentional it was. And it's what allowed me to then get an interview and then future collaboration opportunities with this one business owner. So it was a very long lasting relationship that we got to build as collaborators because of that one DM voice note. If you don't like a voice note, send a text message, right? Like that's totally fine. Text-based message. Now, when it comes to email, this is something that you can still do hand in hand with DMs. I like to do this often, actually. So what I recommend is you do your standard pitch on an email, but then you still follow up or follow through with a DM where you're like, hey, you show your excitement through your voice or through the message itself. I just reached out through email, just wanted to let you know, like, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you and exploring any potential collaboration opportunities or any potential to come speak at your event or on your podcast. Just that small additional touch, it goes a long way in ensuring that they feel like you've done your research. Like this partnership would really be worth doing and moving forward with. The email. Okay, let's explore the email because this is where folks get so in their heads, and I get it. I get in my head too. But I try and follow my own advice, which is number one, don't use an email pitch template if you can. It's okay to take inspiration from one if you need a starting point. Absolutely. There's people that share those resources. Go grab them, take inspiration. I just don't recommend that you use the template as is. And the reason being is that I've been on the receiving end of those templates. And let me tell you, I get those pitches over and over and over again. And even with a little bit of personalization, I see the format, I see the wording, I see the template. I've never seen the blank template myself, like the original one, but I know where it comes from, and it's somebody that's freaking amazing. And I get it. They're all investing in this one program. They're getting access to this template. They're using it, and it's a really good template. But I see it. And sometimes the template will work. And other times I see other templates and I'm just like, already it just doesn't feel like an immediate yes. So it may not be a no, but my barriers, right? My walls are already a little bit up because it doesn't feel like you genuinely would want to speak at their event, even if you genuinely do, right? There's a little bit of a disconnect when you're using a template, when you're using something that's not your voice, that's not you, because that personality, that uniqueness that you bring to the table, that you bring as a speaker to the events, it gets stripped away because you're using somebody else's language. Anyway, I do want to say there's nothing wrong with a template, but I do encourage you to challenge yourself to write it your own way. Now, I do have a resource that I'm going to be sharing in the show notes, and basically it follows a lot of what we're talking about in today's episode. It's all about how to book public speaking engagements, but I'm going to break down what I recommend you do when it comes to structuring your email pitch, because to give you a bit of an insight without going into a full-on lesson here, what I recommend folks do and what I tell my clients is when it comes to an email pitch, I really want you to make it detailed, but brief. Do not send a huge novel because it's kind of daunting to open an email that looks like a contract, right? We want to keep it concise while still communicating the important details that are going to make that pitch a hell yes. So making it concise enough, starting off real clear with what the pitch is. What's this collaboration opportunity? What do you actually want? Because if I've got to read an entire email, even if it's somewhat brief but detailed, cake and eat it too, it's still, if I have to read an entire email to know what you want, you can lose people along the way. So I recommend from the get-go of that email pitch to get to the point. What is your actual ask? Then we really want to focus on the community, on the event, on their platform. It's not about you. I understand that as a public speaker, you can feel this pressure to prove yourself, to make folks aware, especially if you don't have an existing relationship, of what you bring to the table and how amazing you are and all your experience and all the different angles and takes and perspectives and experience that you have. Yeah, absolutely. But if we're making it about us, then it becomes about our expertise, cool, but then it becomes about our gain. It becomes about your visibility, your ability to get more exposure, your ability to potentially even make more sales, your ability to do all these things. And it becomes you throughout the entire pitch. What I want it to be is about the event, about the community, about what you bring to the table, about what you can add in terms of value, experience to that opportunity. So when you lead with that, you also have opportunities to then showcase your leadership through the topics that you're pitching, whether you pitch 1 or option 2 and 3, right? So giving folks very clear direction on what topics you're bringing forward for this event, what you think would be a really good fit in terms of your expertise in bringing those stories, the teachings, anything that you're bringing to the table, then that's going to give this host, whoever's receiving your pitch, a very clear idea of not only the value that you bring, but the specific angles and stories and examples, right? So being able to do that is going to essentially allow you to really stand out amongst other pitches that they might be receiving, because it feels intentional, it feels really genuine, and you can highlight still your thought leadership and your expertise without making that the core of the pitch. So like I said, I go a little bit more in depth inside of the guide, which you can totally go ahead and access for free right now. And inside of the speaker community, what we do is we share a lot of trainings like this. We share a lot of resources, a lot of public speaking opportunities. So if you're interested in joining the Speaker Movement Directory or the Speaker Movement community, I would love to see you inside. We've got free and paid options, but a lot of the conversations that we have, a lot of the networking is all rooted around helping each other amplify our brands as a public speaker. So that is item number 1. We've got a lot more to cover. That was all about pitching yourself for public speaking opportunities, whether you have an existing relationship or not. Now, the next one we're going to be covering is how to build your brand as a public speaker. This is something that I've alluded to and something that I support a lot of my clients specifically inside of the Visibility Tour Challenge. We actually spend 30 days building your brand as a public speaker so you can automate your visibility through public speaking itself. So what we do throughout the challenge, but what I'm encouraging you to do today is to start getting creative with your content on social media, your content throughout your marketing platforms overall, by expressing more of your thought leadership. Essentially, you're creating content that gives folks a sneak peek into what it is like to have you as a public speaker inside of their communities, their events, and their platforms. They're getting a taste of that experience. They're getting a taste of your expertise. So when you start creating content like that around your thought leadership as a speaker, folks starts to notice. You start to plant those seeds along the way that when you go ahead and number 2, publicly talk about the fact that you are a public speaker, people start connecting the dots and they're like, oh, heck yeah. I've been listening to you talk about XYZ for so long now. Like, you are the go-to expert in that area of expertise. I want you specifically, since I now know that you're a speaker, I want you to come and put in this guest training inside of my mastermind, right? Like, how freaking cool would that be? Because yes, maybe myself as the organizer, as a host, as a coach, educator, whatever, maybe I know that subject matter a little bit, or maybe I don't at all. So instead of unethically teaching my clients on that specific subject, I'm going to bring in an expert. I'm going to hire you. I'm going to pay you to speak, to come teach and coach and speak on that subject in front of my clients so that they can get the best support possible from the best possible experts. So now you're creating content, you're building a brand, you're telling people that you're a public speaker. What I do encourage you to do is that you update your marketing bios, your profiles, so that they actually reflect this. Like, tell folks through your platforms that you are a public speaker, not just through your content, right? I want to see speaker as a title on your bio. I want to see the word public speaker on your website, so that no matter where folks are coming to find out more about you, where they are looking for the next steps, hint, hint, that's the next point, they know that, okay, I've got the right person, they are a public speaker, the expertise is on point, so how do I book you? So this is the next item. I want you to tell folks how to book you. We talked already about pitching to other people, right? So if people are now coming to you and they want to pitch you to come speak at their events, then how do they do that? Is there an intake form? Is it a DM on Instagram that you prefer? Is it an email? Whatever it is, give people clear instructions so that they know exactly what steps to take next. Now, finally, this is really taking that next step when it comes to building the brand as a public speaker, because it's not just about sharing your thought leadership. It's not just about saying that you are a speaker. The cherry on top when it comes to building a brand as a public speaker is to actually showcase and share different moments of you embracing your public speaker identity, embracing your public speaker era by sharing public speaking engagements that you've actually taken part in. So every time that you get interviewed on a podcast, every time you go be a guest speaker inside of a private community, inside of a group program, every time that you are either like a keynote or you're on a speaker panel, take that footage, take pictures, videos, whatever proof you have that you do the thing, and then go ahead and share it through your marketing so that folks can really tap into what it looks like to have you come speak at their events. So far, in this whole lesson on how to book public speaking engagements, I hope you're taking notes, by the way, because we're really diving in deep and we're going to be having so many more of these conversations inside of Speaker Movement, the community, and the private directory if you want to be featured as a public speaker in order to increase your visibility, grow your network, and book more public speaking engagements. If you notice, the two categories that we kind of explored already, it's all about pitching and building a brand in order to receive invitations. It's a great double dynamic, right? So that you're doing the heavy lifting, but you're also allowing other people to come and reach out to you. So now what I want to encourage you to explore and to consider is the fact that in order to book public speaking engagements, you can actually start stepping into the rooms that you want to be in, the rooms that you want to speak in. So what this looks like, if there is a networking event in your area, if there is a conference, if there's a summit, whether virtual or in person, start attending those events and don't just attend them, but participate, deeply engage, get to connect with and know the host better, add to the conversation, right? Ask questions, help other people out with your expertise and your perspectives, and really enjoy that experience, like add to the experience as an attendee in order to start making a name for yourself, in order to start getting noticed, so that when you do go ahead and pitch, or when that host does eventually see the amazing content that you're putting out there that positions you as an in-demand speaker, they're going, wow, yeah, they've been attending my events. They've been coming. They're a part of my community and they're amazing. There's just such a great light and energy and addition to that event and that experience that to have them come and speak at my event would just be such a perfect next step for us to go into as a collaborating kind of relationship. So you're making it that natural next step for hosts to either want to invite you or to say yes to your pitch going forward. Now, similar to being in the rooms that you want to speak at, there's a lot of ways to do that without necessarily purchasing tickets to attend events, because that is absolutely a vibe and is going to go a very long way. But there's also other ways to do that without having to purchase tickets or even attend in-person events. What I'm talking about is the ability to network inside of private communities or even public communities. But we're looking at the OG Facebook communities. We're looking at private communities that are hosted on Slack, that are hosted on Discord, that are hosted on Circle, wherever they might be hosted. There's some even that are just DM groups on WhatsApp. Like, the options are endless. But it's about finding the right rooms and, again, networking, chit-chatting with people, showing up to whatever conversations, whatever virtual events they might be having, or again, in person, and getting to know people and allowing folks to get to know you as a human being, as a leader, as a speaker. And what I will say is that just bear in mind when you're networking like this, you don't have to make it salesy. You don't have to turn the conversation into how you're a public speaker or how you're an amazing business owner. Basically, you don't have to pitch yourself every time you're in this room. Yes, you can plant seeds. You could mention how you public speak. You can mention how you're the host of a podcast. You can talk about so many things, but I highly encourage you to allow that to be organic. Go wherever the conversation takes you. If the conversation isn't taking you to the fact that you are a public speaker and you're amazing and everybody raves about how cool it is to have come you speak, then don't bring it up. Don't talk about it, because it's just going to be awkward. It's going to be forced, and people are going to really read they're going to read into that conversation, right? It's like, why was it so forced and awkward? And it's like, right, they were probably trying to pitch themselves. Like there was probably some sort of ulterior motive, or maybe not, and it was just awkward. But what you get to do is release any of that pressure to be so perfect and to force every interaction because you have to position yourself as a speaker, and instead lead with relationships first. If I think of specific examples inside of the speaker movement community, we host weekly co-work and network fiestas. We have the private community where we get to chat, share resources, do a little bit of free coaching. Like there's a lot of opportunities there. There's free speaker media features. There's an opportunity to join the speaker directory officially. And through all that, specifically if we look at the fiestas, we meet up and we're just hanging out. We're shooting the shit. We're having fun conversations about what we did over the weekend. We're talking about relationships, and we're talking about the queer community, and we're talking about being a parent or being child free, and we're talking about travel and so many things. Sometimes we actually talk about business, and we're talking about how we're struggling to build different like zaps in order to connect to different platforms that we want them to talk to each other. And we're like, like being a business owner is so exhausting and complicating, and we're wearing all the hats, and that's what it is. It's just this random casual hangout where there's no ulterior motives, there's no hidden agendas, and we get to truly just connect as human beings. And I think that is so beautiful. And not only that, but I do actually encourage folks to step up and pitch and suggest, let's say suggest instead of pitch, to suggest fun collaboration ideas. But whether it's because of those suggestions, because of the invitation that folks now have to say, hey, I have a podcast, like I would love to have you come speak as a guest. I've seen that happen through those invitations. I've seen it happen organically through the fiestas where folks just become friends. They just like each other and they think it's cool what you are doing because they start consuming your content on social media. So without you having to talk about business, they get to know what it is that you do. And there's been so many folks who have interviewed each other on their podcasts. Just recently, within the last month, I've had two different people, or was it three? Two different people invite me to speak on their podcast, and somebody hired me to come speak inside of their private community. And it's just like these things get to happen organically for both myself, for both folks that join the community for free. And it's just so beautiful to see how we can just be friends, be genuine, no pitching, but we get to come together and support each other in these creative, fun ways through public speaking, through communities, through media features. There's just so many creative ways to amplify each other's brand as a thought leader, as a business owner, and as a public speaker without any strings attached, without any of it feeling so forced. So networking inside of free communities, I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a space like this, specifically a space that centers underrepresented voices, that includes a variety of different backgrounds, but specifically the Latinx community, BIPOC and queer folks, I highly welcome you. I invite you to come join us, join the conversation, join in the fun, attend the weekly network and co-work fiestas whenever you have availability, and check it out because there could be a lot of collaboration opportunities and public speaking opportunities that you stumble upon inside of this free community. For the last bucket inside of this lesson, I feel like this became way more in depth than I was expecting it to, but I love it. And that's exactly what you're here for. So let's keep the momentum going. For the last one, as a public speaker, you get to build your speaker portfolio in order to not only help you book more public speaking engagements, but help you book bigger public speaking engagements. There's a lot of different ways or different things that you can add to your portfolio, and it can start as simple as creating a playlist of all the public speaking interviews that you've done on podcasts, as an example. It could be creating your own media kit where you get to highlight your brand, you get to highlight your expertise through your various speaking topics, you get to highlight a little bit of your experience with past events and interviews, and even a little bit of social proof. And as you structure this media kit, it's essentially like a resume. It's this quick highlight of who you are as a speaker, what you bring to the table, and what you could bring specifically to that event or that community. It's a really great way, and almost, I would say, is one of the simpler ways to have something very official as part of your speaker portfolio that you could literally start working on today. Now, what else is there? You could have a speaker page on your website. You can have samples of your own content, right? Every time you create content through your marketing, that's you creating your own stage. It's you embracing your speaker identity through your own marketing platforms. It still, like we mentioned earlier, gives folks a taste of what it's like to experience you as a speaker at their events or their podcasts, which is exactly what a portfolio gets to do anyway. You could create a speaker reel. You could have a sample of an event that you spoke at that got video recorded, whether it's in person or virtual. You can have that up on YouTube, up on your website, in order to folks be able to tune in to an entire talk, or even just a section of your talk, to really tune into the energy and what it's like in that moment. Not through marketing, not through content, but in that moment for real, when you're actually delivering your speech. That's a different kind of energy that when you're, let's say, doing things a little bit more structured, because you get to re-record 100 million times, right? So it's another thing that you get to add to your speaker portfolio. Now, what I'm going to say is, I think for this could be an entire separate lesson. And I'm actually going to be hosting probably quarterly workshops on creating and updating and maintaining your public speaker portfolio inside of the Speaker Movement directory. So if you want to join the directory, we're going to have those quarterly events. And essentially, it's going to be an opportunity for us to workshop together, to learn a little bit more, and to get real-time feedback on your portfolio and whatever it is that you're working on. So if you're working on your media kit, if you're working on a pitch, like an email that you want to send out, if you're working on your speaker page and you need some feedback from somebody who does this regularly for themselves and their clients, then I'll be right there beside you with a bunch of other public speakers ready to give you feedback and insight and tips and suggestions on your speaker portfolio so you can start booking more public speaking engagements. But anyway, we'll stay tuned for that. I'm going to create the training. We'll see you inside the directory for the quarterly workshops, because I think there's a lot more we can explore in order to help build your brand and your portfolio as a public speaker. Now, those were exactly 5 different ways to book more public speaking engagements. What I want to encourage you to do at this point is figure out, well, what do you want this to look like? What do you want your public speaker journey to look like as an entrepreneur, as a brand, as an individual who has a regular career, like whatever that might be? Figure out what kind of public speaking engagements do you want to participate more in? What does the structure and cadence look like, right? So if you want to be booking a lot more public speaking engagements, then perhaps you're going to have to pitch more. You're going to have to build even more of your brand through your personal content as a public speaker. You might want to build a stronger portfolio. Or perhaps you are very happy and excited about booking, let's say, 5 podcast interviews every quarter. So, okay, what you're going to be doing then is you're going to be going on your own visibility tour or your own speaker tour, where you get to intentionally create content and pitch yourself for, let's say, 30 days. That's typically what I encourage clients to do inside a visibility tour. And you're going to do that every quarter, so that for 30 days, you're going to both pitch and create content that attracts public speaking invitations to your DMs, to your inbox, so that now you book those 5 public speaking engagements for the next quarter. And then 1 quarter later, you're going to do that again. 30 days of intentionally pitching and booking public speaking engagements. You're going to line them up for the next quarter, and you do that again on a cycle, on a cycle, on a cycle. But you get to do it intentionally, and you get to do it based on your specific goals, what kind of public speaking engagements you want and how often you want to do them. You can even get intentional with how you want to leverage public speaking as a marketing and visibility tool in order to grow your business, to grow your revenue, to grow your communities and your network. Right? So there's so many things that you can do with public speaking, but it all starts with getting really intentional with what it is that you want to do, how you want to support more people, and how you want it to make it work for your brand and your business. Now, that is it. That is a tail end of today's episode. Thank you so much for showing up. I really do hope you took a lot of notes, and you can make sure, as like a summary / like a deeper breakdown of everything that we've discussed today, I encourage you to get your hands on the How to Book Public Speaking Engagements guide. It's entirely free, and I hope to see you inside the Speaker Movement community, because it's also free. We host events. There's lots of networking, collab opportunities, public speaking opportunities, and just a whole lot of fun where you get get to connect with other like-minded folks who are on a similar mission to embrace public speaking, to become more visible and take up more space so that they can too share their story, their expertise, and amplify their impact.